What if the goal I am chasing isn't even mine? Is my time appreciated in value or am I burning out? Am I running toward a vision or just running away from average? When does my real work begin?
Hi, my name is Camilo, and this is Chronicles of Success. So you will be asking me who I am, why the reason of this channel. Okay. Today is my birthday, so today I'm having 18 years old, and the reason I'm doing this channel is because I have discovered uh, through all the ages I have lived, and the thing is that I have a mission here in the world, and it's to help people be better, help people educate themselves, help people find their careers, find their goals, find their pursuits, because the world is now corrupted by different stuff that are making people slaves, and a world that is making people uh, feeling ungrateful, and also people is not being happy at all. People show the money, people show their goals, people show their jobs as well, but people entirely they are not being happy. But you will ask me why. So the world now is full of unrealistic people, unrealistic, I don't know, vibes, unrealistic lives. Why? The social media is full of perfect lives, beautiful landscapes, and people is uh, eliminating all those imperfections that they have in their lives. So we are consuming a life that is not true, and we are having like like an standard. We're having stereotypes that are making our lives miserably, because people is just focusing on person and trying to be that stereotype that the people that successful people, happy people is trying to to make us realize. But at the end, in the search of that person, we are falling in the same miserable path that makes people feel sad, that makes people feel empty, that makes people feel that they don't have like a mission in their lives. But why? I'm sorry that I have said a lot of why in this video, but why? And it's because people is not following their their mission or their goal or their inner mind, but they are following uh the inner mind of another people. They are following the mission of another person, of someone that is trying to illustrate that he is completely perfect, that he don't have any imperfection in their lives, that they don't have any unmotivated days, and that's completely fake. And that's what is making our lives miserable. That's what is making our lives untrue, and that's completely incorrect, because the essence of the life is to be vulnerable, is to be perfect, is to feel our beauty, the beauty of people, the beauty of landscapes, the beauty of the nature, and why we are not uh and why we are not valued that, because we are focused on pursuing a dream that is not ours, and we are being ready. So I've talked a lot. I had to consist to admit it, but my goal here is to make people realize that we have purpose, that we have goals, that we have vision in this life. And this is the most powerful lesson I want to bring us. So, who is Camilo? Who is this person that is here? Camilo is someone that was trying to pursue, was trying to follow uh, on true life from social media, from people that try to be perfect in social media, try to be the stereotype person of a successful man, as a trader, drop shipping, what else? Amazon, all those business ideas that the man has tried to give us. Well, not give us, like sell to us. And we were just trying to be them, but and I felt in their traps. I felt for more than 2 3 years of trying to be what other person wants to tell me that I have to be. And all those years, since I was 12 13 years old, I was trying to be those people. And the thing that I was doing is just walking and running in circles, and I wasn't making any progress. Why? Because that life that they paint us, that life that life includes days that hurts, days that we don't have any motivation, days that we don't have like the we don't that we are not eager to complete one lesson, to complete all the things that they paint to us. So there were times that I felt completely. There was days that I wasn't feeling like the motivation. So while I was trying to follow that idea of path, I was always losing. But why? Because that wasn't my path. That wasn't my project. And I was realizing that while I was doing another person path, that I was doing another person projects, I was always falling and I was always feeling miserable because I wasn't making what other people make doing the same path, like tons of dollars, uh like $1,000. You know that all the videos promise to us that we will do, for example, $3,000 in 1 week or 1 month, and we will be successful and millionaire after 6 months of working in this. But in the reality, I did it everything, and I didn't get anything. So right now I'm feeling a little bit scared. I'm feeling a little bit anxious. I'm feeling a little bit worried about this project that I'm doing, because I feel that this is the life and this is the project that I have in this world, and it's to help it. It's to help people find their goals, their path, find their lives. And I know that if I help people, I will at the end be rewarded because of it. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you follow this path you follow those episodes that I will be uploading in the next week. So this is everything for this video. I hope you have a really good day, and yeah, see you in the next video.